Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, we have Annie Hartnett. She is joining us for the BFF Book Club to discuss The Road to Tender Hearts. Annie is the award-winning author of other novels, including Rabbit Cake and Unlikely Animals. Along with the writer Tessa Fontaine, she co-runs accountability workshops for writers, helping writers commit to routines and embrace the long, slow, joyful, terrible process of doing the work. She lives in Massachusetts with her pretty good husband, perfect daughter, and their beloved border collie. Welcome to the club, Annie.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I am so excited to have you. We actually featured your book on a book flight, which is how I found out about The Road to Tender Hearts. I don't know
Oh,
if your publicist told you this. So when I pitched it up,
no.
and then I don't always read the books of the book flight ahead of time. And so I went and read this and fell in love with your book. And I was like, we need to get her on to book club. Like, this just seems like a book we love.
Whose book flight was that?
So her name is Carmen Summers, and she owns, I don't remember the name of her indie bookstore, but it is down in Alabama. And so she
Oh,
is a
nice.
bookseller. Yeah. So she brought your book as part of her 3 books of her book flight. So
Oh, amazing.
yeah, that was in like maybe last fall. Can't quote the episode number, but listeners, I'll put it in the show notes. So, but yeah, so that was what introduced me to you. And I just fell in love, and I knew our book club would love it. I was like, we have to get you on the show. So thank
Oh,
you
that's
for
so
joining
nice.
us. Yeah, for listeners maybe that haven't gotten to read it yet, could you give them, I'm sure you have a quick rundown of what your book is about, and then that way that'll intrigue them to pick it up.
Yes. So The Road to Tender Hearts is about a older man named PJ Holiday who is reading the obituaries one day when he stumbles across the obituary for his friend from high school who's just died. And he realizes that if that man is dead, then the woman that that man married is single again. So he decides to drive across country to win her back after 45 years. But before he can leave, he ends up with the surprise custody of 2 children and also ends up with a cat who can predict death in the car. And his semi-estranged daughter, Sophie, also comes for the ride.
Yeah.
So
As you're
it's
talking about it, I'm like just giggling inside because the whole adventure that ensues is so hilarious, and it's so fun.
thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Did you have what kind of sparked this idea for the story?
So the book came from sort of two different it came from like a bunch of like, you know, I feel like writing a book is making a soup and you're just like, taking ingredients from everywhere. Um so there's like there's the inspirations from like where I got certain like the cat is based on a real cat, Oscar, who was a nursing home cat in Providence, Rhode Island, who could predict death. I mean, he predicted over 100 deaths. He and his
Wow.
brother were brought to the nursing home to be therapy cats, and they discovered just happenstance that he had this ability to predict death. And so he was beloved. by the nursing home, and he died in 2022, which is when I started writing the book. So that was one inspiration. But the biggest inspiration for like the tone of the book and sort of the hijinks of the book is because I lived in Providence, Rhode Island. For I lived there for 4 happy years, and I had a kid, and I decided that I needed some space to raise the kid. But we couldn't afford to buy a house, but we had friends who were renting a house, and I was like, what a concept. You could rent a house. So I looked on Zillow to see if there was any houses to rent in Providence, and there was a house to rent that wasn't that much more expensive than our apartment. So we moved to the other side of town to this house where every single bad thing that can happen in a house happened.
Yeah.
We had, on the day we moved in, our neighbor stabbed her sister.
Oh my goodness.
That was starters. And then we were supposed to take care of the lawn, and we discovered as it grew in, we moved in March 2020. As it moved in, as the lawn grew in, it was 100% poison ivy. Then we had 2 gas leaks, 2 basement floods, rats in our car. The rat guy came and said, "Oh, I see you have a small child. Make sure she doesn't run at any of the rats because they will charge her right back." And I was like, "What? She's a baby?"
Yeah.
And then he said to cut down this white mulberry tree because that's why the rats were coming to the yard. So we called the tree guy to cut down the tree, and he came to cut down the tree, and he said, "Well, okay, but that tree and that tree and that tree are going to fall on your house." 3 days later, a tree did fall on not in our house, but in the yard. And then a teenager crashed his car at the base of our driveway and died. And that was like sort of the last straw.
Oh my goodness.
And so we ended up moving, and we moved to a town called Lakeville, Massachusetts, which is where Pondville in the book is. If you've read the book, you know that the book
Yeah.
is set in Pondville in the beginning. Um, and so we moved here, and I was like, oh, I feel safe. Like I can relax. I like save the family.
Yeah.
And then I realized, no, I didn't. Like something bad could happen to any of us at any time, and I can't stop it.
Hmm.
You can't walk around all the time with a baseball bat, like trying to protect everybody. So I just had all this anxiety, and I just realized what I was going to do with that anxiety was to put it in a book and have a family sort of chased by every bad thing that can happen to a family. So the book has, people always say it has every single trigger warning that you can put into a book. But I wanted to use it as sort of a way to deal with my own anxiety. So I wanted to make it as funny as possible.
Yeah.
So I never feel like it's a book that actually needs trigger warnings, but people are different. It so that was like that's not what the book is really about in some ways, although that is what the book is about a family feeling chased by or being chased by death. They don't even always realize to the extent.
Yeah.
Um,
It's so interesting, like the serendipity of this. And that's kind of where the book flight idea came from. But actually, the episode that came out last week was about scary, funny books for times like when you're feeling anxious. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like literally like the same. This fits right into that. And, but just how you can channel that energy in a different way, right?
yeah, totally. It's um when you're like, I don't think writing fiction is therapy, but I do think it's you write about what sort of haunts you and interests you.
Yeah.
Um, And so that's where this book came from. And then it's like inspired by PJ Holiday is based on my father, whose name is also PJ. Um, and well, we call him, I mean, everyone calls him Paul, but I always called him PJH. And so I wanted a PJH, so PJ Hartnett, PJ
Oh,
Holiday.
yeah.
Um, and he's not exactly my dad, but he has some of the same qualities. He's very generous with money. He's very loving, and he's very like he loves a good party and a glass of Chardonnay. So um and then I took my dad and then I sort of mashed him with like the dude from The Big Lebowski. And then really one of the main things that inspired TJ's story is that I met a man in like 2000, probably 2015 maybe. And he told me that he is so sensitive that his wife has to um, cut up the newspaper for him and remove things that would
Oh, so
upset
that
him
was
about
real.
animals and animals and children. So
Wow.
that was really where the PJ story came from. So the cat story came from the real cat. The PJ story, the newspaper he's reading where he discovers the
Yeah.
obituary is cut up by his ex-wife. So that is based on the real story. The third chapter where you meet the children, which I won't spoil, is not based on any, I mean it's sort of based on like a bunch of news stories, but um and sort of the way I like and things that haunt me. So anyway,
Yeah.
that I don't want to spoil that chapter. That is the
Sure.
dark chapter.
Yeah.
Some people say I had to push through that and then I was rewarded. Other people love that chapter. I personally love that chapter, but if you don't like chapter 3, just
Keep
keep
going.
reading.
Yeah.
Um, but I hope you like chapter 3. I And so I had those 3 chapters and they all kind of felt at first like they were for different projects. And then I realized that if I use the right voice, that they could all hang together and that they are all tied together already through the theme of the newspaper because PJ cuts up or the newspaper's cut up for PJ, and the things that are cut out of the newspaper are animals in chapter 1, Pancakes, the cat, and then the children in chapter 3. So it just all works together. And sometimes that's how I find that's what I mean by like it's like making a soup is you just
Yeah.
keep adding things to it and then kind of waiting for it to make sense as a dish.
Yeah. And it can just sit and marinate, right? I think it's,
Hmm.
as you were talking more, I mean, at face value of your story of moving into the rental house, like you just can't possibly think another thing could go wrong, right? Like, can
Yeah.
that many bad things go wrong at the same time? And that I will admit, like, not that the book, I didn't think that in the book, but there just seems like one thing after another is kind of like you said, chasing them is maybe a way to put that. But wow, like I can't believe. And you're like, well, we're just going for more space. And then you land in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that year it was definitely like thing after thing. And what was funny to me about that is then when I went on the first night that this book came out, I told that story um at my book launch and my parents were in the audience. My parents are often in the audience. They love to come to every event. And I just get to like heckle my dad the whole time. Um and so my parents were there and my mom was like kind of upset. She was like, I had no idea that year was so bad.
Yeah.
Especially because it was COVID, so we were isolated. So I would see them, but I would see them outside. So I was like, oh, I like guess I kept it together because I did not feel like I was together. But um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was a dark year, but I got a book out of it, so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you learn about yourself through writing this book?
Um, I mean, I learned most of what I'm trying to learn, I think, is about myself as a storyteller, like what I am trying to achieve. So which I have learned a lot since my first book. So my first book came out in 2017. It was very well received, very well reviewed. We got some great coverage. It was like People Magazine's Book of the Week. Like it
Okay.
got all the things that you
Yeah.
hope a debut novel gets. Um, and it really got like really nice reviews. So everything like good could have happened that happened to me. And still, the thing you remember is you don't remember all the good stuff. You remember that one negative thing. So it was a positive review. but there was a review that said, uh, sometimes, like in some ways, Hartnett is like Karen Russell, which is a positive. We love Karen Russell. I love Karen Russell a lot. And but but
Mhm.
sometimes Hartnett veers toward the silly. And so that was what I remembered. Like I was like walking around muttering like veers toward the silly, veers toward
Yeah.
the silly. And it hurt because it's true. It's actually one thing. It's if you're going to compare me to Karen Russell, it is a thing that separates us. Um, I mean, she's very, I just would, I think probably some of her stories you could say are silly, but like we just kind of have different aims.
Sure.
There are ways that in which we're similar, but so it hurt because it was like true, but phrased as a bad thing. Like you always thought you had beautiful hair, and then your college roommate, and this is true, says to you, me, um, oh yeah, my hair would be your hair color if I didn't dye it. Like implying that I
Yeah.
should dye my hair. Um, and so that happened and it shut me down for a while. And then I got this made. It's usually like hanging up, but so if you are
I
listening
love
to the
it.
podcast and not watching right now, you can't even fit it in the screen
Yeah, it's
because I don't
big. Yep.
understand how to order things online. I meant to order like a little sign, but it says veer toward the silly and it
Yeah.
sits on my desk. Now I just moved my desk to the other side of the room, so it's in a new place. But um I got that, and that is one thing that I kind of embraced in the next book, and then sort of even more like it's such a, that review, even though I talk about it all the time as a negative thing that happened to me, which it really wasn't. It was a positive review, and I feel bad about even talking about it as much as I do because I don't hold any grudge against the reviewer. I don't even remember who it was, um but it was a gift because it was the thing that is true phrased as a negative and then being like I should take ownership of that because it's
Yeah.
something that makes me different.
Yeah.
um and it might not be for you, but it is for me. It's like I was like it's something I like about my own work. It's like just like I like my color of my hair, and I'm gonna like own it. And so with Unlikely Animals I leaned more into silly. And then this book is like, I wanted it to be that all the books are dark comedies, but I was like, this one is a comedy with a capital C. Like,
Yeah.
if it's not your humor, that's fine, but it's supposed to like it's supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not gonna make everyone laugh, but hopefully, most people like the humor in it. So that's what I've kind of learned about myself as a writer over the past
Yeah. One of my
10
favorite
years.
sayings is no one is you and that is your superpower. Like
Oh,
what makes you unique, right? And you
yeah,
have to find your own voice or like you said, your storytelling. I mean, you could apply that to any caveat of what you're doing, but you need to find what makes you unique and then just
totally,
embrace that.
totally.
But like you said, it could be came from like a negative connotation, right? And then that. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about who you are as a reader. How do you find time to read in all your business with your family and your writing?
I do listen to a bunch of audiobooks.
Okay.
Audiobooks really help. And then I read often before I work. I read sometimes in the morning. I've done a thing on and off where I read like 3 pages at night, 3 pages in the morning, just to like I'm all about, I run these accountability workshops, which are about making time for your writing,
Yeah.
and we do a lot of coaching. So I'm all about coaching people on how to like lower the bar. So like do more by doing less.
Yeah.
So with reading, it's kind of the same thing as when I'm looking for some sort of structure, I'll be like 3 pages at night, 3 pages in the morning. Which
Attainable.
also just helps me put my phone down and set the tone for the day.
Yeah.
But I I am always it's so when I'm in a great book, it's so great. And then when the book is over, it's so hard to start over.
Yeah.
Um, so it's always it's like a breakup.
Yeah, and you can't, I'm like
Um,
in that right now where I can't get into another book right now because I have such a book hangover
yeah,
from the last one. Like, come on, like something
yeah.
else grab my attention.
Yeah, it helps that's why like I'll often have um like if I have a book on my shelf, sometimes I'll buy the audiobook so then I can like enter that way and
Yeah,
then read the rest. Um and yeah, I try to make reading a part of my daily life. I go through periods where I read a lot and periods where I read less. I also have to read a lot, have to I guess is a maybe a strong word, but have to read a lot of books that aren't out yet to
yeah,
blurb. Um, and so I'm kind of overwhelmed with the amount of blurbs right now. Because people don't ask you for years and then all of a sudden they'll ask you a lot. So I'm being
yeah,
asked a lot in this current moment. So almost everything I'm reading right now isn't out yet.
yeah.
Um,
It jumps up to like the priority list, right? Of like, okay, I have to accomplish this right now. So,
yeah,
yeah,
because you're like someone's waiting for me, and
yeah,
nobody cares if I ever finish Moby Dick. So,
yeah, absolutely. What type of genres do you gravitate towards?
um, I read everything. I was a bookseller
Okay.
for, so I used to read like sort of. I got insulted once. I guess I'm like really motivated. This I'm realizing something about myself now. I'm really motivated by being insulted and like proving that person wrong. I was insulted by somebody who I at the time when I was a bookseller, I read like an insane amount. And so this woman came into the store and I was showing her books that she should get. And then she said, "Well, have you read this?" And it was Gone Girl. And I said, "Oh no, I haven't read that one yet, but everybody loves it, you know." And then she said, "I assumed if you were a bookseller, you would have read all the important books."
Mhm.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
Um, so that's when I started reading more like thrillers that I hadn't, that was a genre that I hadn't really read much of before. I do think it's helpful for people who don't write genre to read genre
yeah,
because they're so like I actually have Save the Cat right here. They're so plotted. And they're like so it can help to learn more about structure and plot and
yeah.
the ways that like what you have to deliver if you write a romance or something. I just read my first um Emily Henry
Okay.
because I only had Moby Dick with me on the plane and I had just had like four events in 3 days in California and I had only brought Moby Dick, which I am reading right now. Um, but I was like, I would rather die than spend this 6 hour flight where I'm exhausted reading
Yeah.
Moby Dick.
You need an
Um,
escape.
yeah, so I bought my first Emily Henry, which is not usually my genre, but I loved it. And so
Well, let's give them. I usually ask the guests to bring a book flight. So usually it's three of their favorite books. So can you tell us what are your three books?
Um, so I'm extremely disorganized, so I have to think of them off the top of my head, which I can do. Um, so one of them would be one of George Saunders' books. Um, and probably Lincoln in the Bardo would
Yeah.
be. I mean, I also love Civil War Land and Bad Decline, but Lincoln in the Bardo. I just saw George Saunders 2 weeks ago with his new book out, and he's just amazing. And
Yeah.
and as a writer, he's amazing. As a person, he's amazing. So I love George Saunders.
Okay.
I do love Karen Russell. I love Swamplandia a
Okay.
lot. That is a book I can return to over and over. Um, and I guess my next one, Amy Bender, uh, The Particular Sadness of Lemon Cake
Yeah.
is a, like a classic to me at this point.
Okay.
Uh,
I love
and
that.
I like Moby Dick. I'm not done.
I've been trying to mix a classic in, one or two a year. And then, especially ones even that I read was assigned reading in school to see if I like them now when it's not assigned reading. I think you read so differently when it's leisure reading
Yeah,
versus assigned.
my friend Susanna Cahalan, who's most famous for Brain on Fire, but has a
Oh,
new book called The
yes.
Ask Queen, which is really great.
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
Um, she's the best, and she's sort of the reason why I'm reading Moby Dick. Oh, wait. Oh my God. Can I edit my book flights and
You can
just
have a dessert
uh
pairing. We have a
just there.
fourth
Okay,
option.
so
Yeah.
obviously John Irving is my favorite of all time.
Okay.
Um, he's really my favorite of all time. And so he was just on my friend's podcast, Gabe's Reading, and um he talked about Moby Dick. And then Susanna said Moby Dick changed her life. And so that's why I'm
Yeah.
reading Moby Dick.
Now you're
But
on
yeah,
it.
John Irving is my favorite actually of all time. And the fact that he blurbed this book was crazy to me.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, actually, everybody who blurbed this book, they're all the best ever. So I love Ruthie Thorpe's Margot's Got Money Troubles. I love
Oh,
Catherine
yeah.
Newman. I love Sharkheart. And I love The Wedding People. And I loved Shelby Van Pelt's.
Remarkably
I
Bright
always call it the
Creatures.
Octopus book, but
Yeah.
Remarkably Bright Creatures.
Such a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah. So those are like that's my extreme dessert pairing, but
That's your
John
dream
Irving
team.
is like I can't believe he's not on the first three. So
Yeah. Well, that's okay. We got it as the dessert pairing. Well, I love to open it up. If anybody has any questions and if you're like, I'm too shy, you can pop it in the chat. I can read it for you. That's fine too. But you could feel free to unmute yourself if you have anything. It doesn't even have to be a question. If you just want to tell Annie something.
I will always ask a question.
Yep.
Um,
Happy to have you.
and thank you, Annie. This was such a treat. My goodness. Where do I start? So there were so many dark moments, and I remember at one point I listened to it, and the narrator just amazing. Um, and I remember stopping, going, "Okay, what else can possibly happen here?" But every time there was a dark moment, the humor just carried you through that moment, which I thought was genius. So that was incredible. And I did go out and buy the hardcover because I just can't get enough of this book. And I know I
oh.
will re-listen to it. I feel like everybody can relate to an Uncle PJ somewhere, whether it's, in another whether it's a father, a brother, a friend. And everything makes sense now. So thank you for explaining how all of those pieces came together in your soup because it's like, okay. I thought maybe the story was going to be about a cat who thought, and I just really love the way that you constructed this. When you read your work back to yourself, if you do you laugh out loud?
Um, I usually laugh when I'm writing it. Is if it's really good, I will laugh while I'm writing it. What the best and most like annoying to him is when my husband doesn't read things until I'm all the way done. So even with this book, he listened to a lot of it on audio. So even like it had to be published, really, because you don't get the audiobook in advance. You get the advanced copies, obviously. But when he reads it and he's laughing, I'm like, what line was that? What line was that? Which is not a fun way to read something. But I definitely write first to make myself laugh. And like if I'm having fun, I know that probably not every reader, but you can't make every reader happy, but like the right reader is having fun with me. And so um yeah, I mean jokes are what comes easiest to me. Like when I'm working, I go for the joke first. And then what I do have to do is I have to go back in and I'll have to like put more emotion in because I'm from, you know, Irish Catholic family. We're not really famous for talking about our emotions. So like the emotional conversations where PJ, and so where Sophie like asks I to get confronts PJ and like tells him how she really feels. Like I've had people tell me like I really wish I could have a conversation like that with my dad, and I'm like, maybe that's what fiction is for, because those conversations like are hard to have. I mean, I do hope that that person has had that conversation if they need them, but also um sometimes so I'll edit and I'll call them the emo draft. So the tone and the humor that people always ask me about is like, how do you do that? That's personality. That's stuff that like is just comes naturally to you. And I do think people should lean into whatever their personality is. So like if you're a silly person like I am, like that's where the like go to the silly place. And then if you're, are I don't know, someone who sees the beauty in the world, you write like poetically or something. Um, but yeah, thank you so much. And I live to make people laugh. Is like that is really my ultimate goal is to tell good stories and make people laugh. And then sort of beyond that is like just is nice, but like that's the goal. That's what I'm thinking is this is going to make people laugh.
Yeah. I
Thank
was
you.
thinking as you were even telling the rental house story of, that saying, it's like, if we don't laugh, we'll cry. Like you have, at a certain point, like there's just so much going on that you just have to laugh. Like there's nothing else you could do in that
Oh yeah.
moment,
I mean, when something bad happens to me, I'm immediately like, how can I tell people about this? Like it just is like that's my coping mechanism is I want to tell the story. I want to be I like I am always like, listen to this like either text messaging or like, entertaining. Like um that's like where I find the meaning of life is just is sharing what happens to us.
yeah,
Good or
you're a
bad.
storyteller.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Nicole, go ahead.
I love the book. It to me it read like if Stuart Onan and Terry Pratchett got together and wrote like a really funny book about just normal ordinary people. It was just I loved every bit of it.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and it was kind of haunted in a way by spirituality too. And I was wondering if you would speak to that a little bit, if you're willing to. I know that's I think it's common, to the human experience to kind of seek that. And so I just when I see it in a book and it resonates, it's just a really makes it extra special. So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's all my books are about death and they're all about especially the last well, the second one is really like what happens after. This one is a little, I mean, that's the second one, but they're all three are about death. And I remember I was in, I think I was in North Carolina, and someone in the front row was like, "Do you think about death a lot?" And I was like, "Yeah, don't you?" And she was like, "Not, no." Um, and so I was like, That's strange because, um, so I am." And I was raised Catholic. So and I was told certain things, but very early on, I was skeptical about the what I was being told, especially because I was like born an extreme animal lover. And the nuns who, were teaching CCD were like, animals don't go to heaven. And I was like, I don't accept that. So therefore, what you're telling me, I don't believe the rest of it either because so I was and also some really bad stuff actually was happening in that church, like not what you were immediately thinking of with pedophilia, but some bad stuff in terms of like one of the guys was telling my brother that like the crusades were okay because people were killed for religious purposes, sort of like, and that he's getting in an argument with my brother who's like way too smart and like just a fifth grader. And so it was, it was, it was, and it was a formative time in my life. And then I would ask my dad, like, to when we were going to church, I didn't want to go to church. And I'd be like, Dad, what if God is a chicken and we should have been worshiping a chicken this whole time? And he was like, like, Annie, just get in the car. Like, he didn't want to have the discussion with me. He was just like, this is just what we do. Like, just get in the car. But he was also like, she has me. Like, I don't know. And so I think that has always, because of, I guess, how that was talked about in my family afterwards as I got older, is like, he didn't know. He just wanted me to get in the car, but he didn't know. And so one thing I'm fascinated about in all of my work also is what children know and what adults pretend that they know, even though they don't know. And so, like, my daughter is 6 and she's asking questions all the time. She had a teacher who died tragically this year, and she's like asking about, and I just like don't, I do my best. But I can't really explain to her because I have no idea. And so for people who have like really strong faith and are 100% certain, I envy that, I guess. Although I'm like, you don't know either. Like, nobody knows. And so so in fiction where I'm a little more powerful, I just like to play with those things. And, like in Unlikely Animals, it's told from the perspective of the ghost in the cemetery. So I really answer like, that's what happens. Although there's another like layer to like, they don't even know that there's something else beyond. So the unknown is always, it's part of human existence. So, it's something I probably will always like be working through because you're trying to write fiction. Like I said, I don't find it to be therapy, but I'm like also trying to answer questions. And so it comes up a lot in my work because I just don't have the answer, but it's also like some of the basis of my childhood was like being told to do this, even though my parents were like also questioning on their own. And they were like, but we've always done this, but it makes it Sundays so hard. So we ended up stopped going to church because my brother started playing football. So that football became religion. So, which is not, that's an American story right there.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any questions?
I was curious. So they go through Little Rock at one point, and you talk about the Purse Museum. Have you been to the SC Purse Museum? I'm from Little Rock.
I have. I went to the Six Bridges Festival for Unlikely Animals. And so I went I was there. I guess I was there for probably only a day, but I hadn't been to Arkansas before, and I've been to all but Nebraska, Oklahoma, North Dakota, and Kansas. And so I was like, so my rule when you go to a state is you have to do something that is specific to the state in order to check it off. You can't just drive through it. You certainly can't just go to an airport. And so, and even a book festival for me is I could be anywhere. So it's not an airport, obviously, but it has kind of the qualities of an airport that's like this, we could be anywhere, and it's not unique to the state, even though Six Bridges is obviously unique, but so I wanted to go to something that was unique, and so I was able to walk to the Purse Museum. So I went with another writer and actually two other writers, and saw the Purse Museum. And yeah, so the Purse Museum in the book I think it's not exactly accurate, but it's like pretty accurate in that the Purse Museum they are divided by decade, as you know. You've been
Yeah.
and I like the Purse Museum, and I also so that is one of the real stops in the book. They don't sell. I mean, they have a nice gift shop. I don't think they had well, I don't know. I guess I didn't pay attention to how much their purses cost because I didn't buy anything, but I didn't see any $2,000 pineapple purses, but
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think
they're
so.
more like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a little lower end than that. Yeah. Um, I also just was going to comment too that like one of the things I really loved about the book was all of the people you meet along the way, and I love the details that you give about people. Like it's not the details that we always think of first. Like it's those things that sort of stick with you. And there's so many characters that they meet along the way that like I wanted to meet again. Like
Hmm.
like you
Oh,
keep thinking about them afterwards. And it reminds me so much of Frederick Bachman's work as well. I just finished reading Anxious People, and it's that same thing of that sort of just like normal, ordinary people and how we all sort of fit together. So I loved it.
thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think it's one reason I didn't even know that. Oh, I'm just thinking of more and more people that I want to write. Like, I mean, you guys do this all the time, but I love Kevin Wilson's work, and we both had road trip books come out this year, and also Jess Walter had a road trip book come out, and I think so there was a lot of talk about road trip books when our books all came out, and I didn't know that people don't like road trip books. I think
Really?
all three of our books are good, but I didn't know that because I didn't have a road trip book out. So I would occasionally see like I don't like road trip books, but I like these books. And somebody said and like so I thought about it. I was like, why would people like dismiss a whole
Yeah.
genre like that? Um and then I thought about it and I was like, well, one thing that's hard about road trip books is you can't like have recurring characters unless someone is chasing the car. Like you just have to have them appear and be memorable and have a role in the story, but like they can't come back especially if you're leaving, like if unless you're doing a loop.
Yeah.
Um, so one thing that I do instead is related to the Purse Museum is I put objects in the car and have the objects like recur in unexpected ways. But I appreciate that the people you met on the road were memorable because you only get to meet them once. So
Yeah. Love it. I didn't realize there was a negative connotation to a road trip book.
yeah, I
So,
mean,
yeah.
that again, back to me only hearing like the negative thing,
Yeah.
and then trying to make it into a positive. I guess I'm just interested in like I read every single Goodreads review. So I just I kind of stop at some point. I just I've stopped at this point. But when the book first comes out, I read everything because I do want to know what people think.
Yeah.
And um
See how it's hitting them.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't want to kind of uh I live to make people happy, but then I also live to prove people wrong. So. Kind of in between. So
Yeah.
I love the positive reviews and then the negative reviews. I'm like, all right, I'll fix that next time. But
Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in? If not, we can close it out. I guess I have one question. Who was your favorite character to write?
PJ is so much fun to write. I could write PJ forever. I mean, like Holly said, we all know a PJ, so he's just like relatable in the way that he like you just know men like him. And I also in my alter ego, I would like to be like a badly behaved older man. I just like they get so much grace from the world and they can, just tell bad jokes. They can fart in public and we just give them and we don't give older ladies the same grace.
Yeah.
I'm kind of determined in my next book to have some old ladies who get a little more time in the sun because I just like to write about second chances a lot of the time, which is I think also related to the sort of spirituality question. It's like how do you make the most out of your life, what we do have? And so I'm always writing about that too. Um, so yeah, I could write PJ forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's part of why I grab it. I love older characters. I think they can bring so much wisdom to a book too, right? Or like you said, the grace or I just love it. So I think I just fell in love with that PJ for that reason too. So, well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Annie, for joining us and sharing about The Road to Tender Hearts. Next month, we are going to read a cozy mystery. So we haven't done a cozy mystery for book club yet. So if you make sure you're following Bookish Flights, it'll be on there. I'll have all the info, but it's A Murder Most Foul. It's a chicken food truck that goes on kind of like a great food truck competition, and a murder happens. So we're still in death, I guess. We're still on the death theme with A Murder Most Foul by Carmela Dutra. So thank you all for coming.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition today of the BFF Book Club with Annie Hartnett to discuss The Road to Tender Hearts. We'd love to have you join us next month to read A Murder Most Foul with Carmela Dutra. You can find all the information at the link in the show notes or at our website, bookishflights.com. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.